We were doing a training operation. We get into this tactical situation. Everyone in my platoon is focused on one area. Everyone's looking down their weapons, waiting for a threat to expose itself, which means you got 16 guys looking down their weapons, and I'm waiting for someone to make a call. I was a new guy. I'm waiting for someone above me in the chain of command to say, hey, move here, or hey, move forward, or make some kind of a decision. And as I'm waiting, no one's doing it. So I'm a new guy. I'm scared to say anything, and I know I shouldn't say anything, so I'm just waiting, and no one's giving an order. No one's giving any direction. So I wait longer. And this goes on for probably 30 seconds or a minute, which is a really long time when you're trying to take down a target. And finally, I said to myself, all right, I'm going to see what's going on. So I actually point my weapon at the ceiling, and I take a step back, and I just look around. And I see that every single person in my platoon, including my platoon commander, including the assistant platoon commander, including the platoon leading petty officer, everyone is just focused on their weapons, and no one's making a decision. And I can see this. And because I'm looking around, and I'm detached from the scenario, just by 8 inches, I stepped back and looked around. I can see what decision needs to be made. And so I summoned up as much courage as I could as a new guy, because new guys don't make decisions. And I said, hold left, clear right, which was a basic command that we had rehearsed and you would practice. And I expected someone to say, shut up, Jocko. But instead, they repeated the command. They all said, hold left, clear right, which means we were going to execute it. And sure enough, the guys on the left held and the guys on the right cleared, and we got done. And instead of someone saying, hey, you need to keep your mouth shut, like one of the more senior guys said, hey, good job up there. Way to make a call. So I looked at it and I said, wait a second, how could I have, as a new guy, have made a decision in that situation that was better than what the more senior, more experienced guys were making? And I realized it was because I took a step back and detached from it. So at that moment, I said to myself, okay, from now on, when I get into these tactical scenarios, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to try and look around and I'm going to try and detach myself from the chaos and the mayhem. And I started doing it all the time. In every tactical situation, in the land warfare, in the mountains, in the urban environments, I was doing it all the time. And I was able to see what was happening. It was like a superpower to be able to see what was happening and make decisions. And so then I actually started doing it when I was having conversations. And if you and I were in disagreement and you started getting emotional, instead of me getting emotional back at you, I would just take a step back and be like, oh, okay, he's really concerned about this. Why is he so concerned? What does he see that I don't see? And I started actually just detaching all the time. And that became a very powerful tool in leadership that I use to this day. My second platoon, we have a great platoon chief, we have a great platoon LPO, we have a great assistant platoon commander, but our platoon commander, the guy actually in charge of the whole platoon, he's not very experienced. He had come from a different job in the Navy, so he didn't have a lot of experience, and which is fine. It's okay to be inexperienced as a leader. You can get through that. As long as you're humble and you listen and you take advice from other people, you should be able to do fine. No one expects you to know everything as a leader. But he didn't do that. He didn't listen. He didn't take advice. He didn't take guidance. Everything was like his way or the highway. And eventually, we in the platoon got kind of fed up with it. And we had a mutiny inside of our platoon. We went to our commanding officer and said, hey, sir, we don't want to work for our platoon commander. He doesn't listen, he's arrogant. And eventually what ended up happening was this guy got fired as our platoon commander. And that left an impact on me because as I'm watching this going, I'm thinking to myself, why don't we like this guy? Why doesn't anyone want to listen to this guy? Why don't we want to follow this guy? And the reason, because he was arrogant and he didn't listen and he didn't give us any ownership of everything. Everything was about him. And that would have made an impression on me. That would have left a mark, but the mark got left even more clearly because when that guy got fired, the guy that came in and took over for him was like, I hate to use the word legendary, but he was a pretty legendary SEAL, had a ton of experience. He'd come up through the ranks and he had been stationed at every different kind of SEAL team. And he took over as our platoon commander. And I kind of thought to myself, well, he's going to take over because we're a bunch of mutineers and they need to put someone really strong that's going to whip us back into shape. So I was anticipating that we were going to have this super hardcore guy. And this guy shows up and he's got a nice smile on his face and he's super humble And I remember one of the first things he said to us was like, I look forward to working with you guys. And I was, that word right there, I'm gonna work with you guys. Not I'm in charge, I'm glad I'm taking over, I'm glad to be your commander. It was nothing like that. He said, hey, I'm looking forward to working with you guys. So all of a sudden it was totally different. And he started putting us in charge of things. Instead of him coming up with a plan, he would say, hey, you guys come up with a plan and let me know how you wanna do it. And all of a sudden we had all this ownership, and that made me reflect on the way the first guy had acted compared to the way this guy had acted. And I realized how important it was to be a humble leader and to listen to other people and to give ownership to other people. So that was the second platoon. And then in the third platoon, the story that I tell is it was a good solid platoon, and we had a good platoon commander, and we were out in the desert doing some training, and some targets popped up. It's just fake, it's not war, but we start engaging the targets like we're supposed to, and everyone gets in the prone position and is returning fire. And I did what I had been doing this whole time, which was detach. I kind of took a step back, shot a couple rounds, then kind of pulled back and looked to see what was going on. And I saw the call that needed to be made. And I gave the platoon commander a couple seconds to make a call, and he didn't make it. So, I made the call, peel left. And everyone said, okay, peel left. And we peeled left, and we left the scenario, and we got our distance, and then we stopped the training exercise, and we did a little debrief. And during the debrief, the platoon commander, he said to me, well, why did you make that call? And I said, well, I could see what we needed to do, and you hadn't made a call, so I made the call. And he goes, well, I actually didn't want to peel left. I wanted to assault the target. And right there in that split second, I kind of thought to myself, well, like part of my ego flared up, and I was kind of thinking I could have said something along the lines of, well, you need to make a call faster. If you're not going to step up and lead, then I'm going to do it. Like I could have said that. But I realized at that moment in time, wait a second, I didn't need to make a call. The problem could have developed more. But for some reason, I thought that I needed to be the guy. And I said, no, you know what? You don't need to be the guy. Your leader, you need to support your leader. And it's not about you. And so that right there also changed my attitude, because then, from then on, in my career and in my life, I realized, hey, I don't always need to be the center of attention, which is what our ego wants us to do. Our ego always wants it to be about us. And it's not about us. It's not about us at all. In fact, in a situation like that, where the platoon commander wants to do something, maybe he sees something that I don't see, maybe he's got a different strategic objective that he wants to accomplish, and I'm undermining that. And what does that do to our platoon? Hey, it makes me feel great, because I think, oh yeah, I might not be the guy in charge, but I'm out here making the calls. That's your ego. And what you have to do is subordinate your ego and be supportive of the person that's in charge, and you move forward together as a team, because that's what it's about. It's not about me, it's about the team. When I say that relationships are the most important thing in getting things done, when I look back at my career in the Navy and the SEAL teams, just about every single thing that I ever did was through relationships. So the amount of times that I looked at one of my subordinates and said, no, you will do what I'm saying because I'm in charge, I don't think I actually honestly ever said that one single time. I think it was always, hey, this is what we got to get done. How do you think we should do it? Do you think this is smart? And it was all based on relationships, and up the chain of command too. There was never a time that one of my bosses said, hey, Jocko, shut up and you do what I told you to do. There was never a time that one of my bosses said that to me. There was, if I had a question, if I pushed back, they gave me legitimate answers. If they didn't have good answers, then they would modulate or change what it is that they were telling me to do. So this idea of having relationships up and down the chain of command, and there's a word that people bring up a lot, and I think they're pretty interchangeable, and it's relationships and trust, right? Trust is built on relationships. Relationships are built on trust. If you don't trust me, we don't really have a relationship. Right. The more deeply you trust me, the better relationship we have. So how do I build trust with you? So if you're above me in the chain of command, well, this is one of those answers that's so obvious, it's crazy, but people actually fail to do this, which is if you ask me to do something as my boss, I do it, and I do it well, and I do it consistently, and I go above and beyond what you ask. And if you want me to deliver this project by this date, I deliver it earlier, and I deliver it to the best of my ability above and beyond what you expected. And you say, oh wow, when I ask Jocko to do something, he actually does it. And that's where it starts. It starts with that right there, with me performing, me offering advice, me taking what you asked me to do and doing it. That's the number one thing. If we flip those roles, and now I'm in charge of you, how do I build trust with you? Well, what I do is I give you a project. And instead of me giving you a project and then saying, hey, here's how I want you to do this, and here's how I want you to do the next part, instead I say, hey, here's a project, let me know how you want to do it. And then you go figure out how you want to get done. And I don't micromanage you, and I don't ask you a million questions about and tell you, no, don't do it like that, do it like this. I let you do it. And what does that tell you? That tells you that I trust you. I trust you. And when I trust you, you start to trust me. And by the way, if something goes wrong, instead of me jumping down your throat and hanging you out to dry and making you an example in front of everyone, I say, hey, let's figure out what went wrong. Did I not support you well enough? Did I not give you what you needed? And so you realize, oh, he's not going to hang me out to dry. He's going to give me the support. He's going to try and teach me if something goes wrong instead of try and drop the hammer on me. And in order to do this properly, of course, let's say you just started working for me. The first thing I would hand you wouldn't be a massively strategic, important project and say, hey, here's a multi-million-dollar project. You take and run with it. I'll be over here. I trust you. You make it happen because I don't know you. How can I trust you if I don't know you? So I'm going to give you a smaller project. I'm going to give you something little to start on. And then you do that well, boom. Now I'm going to give you something bigger. And we continue to go in that direction until pretty much we get to a point where all I really have to tell you is, hey, this is the vision. This is what we're trying to make happen. Run with it. If you need to pass this barrier of whatever kind, let me know so I can let everyone else know. But it's on you. Run with it. I ask questions. Now, when I ask questions, this is a tool, but it's also legitimate questions. So when I say, hey, Tom, here's the project I want you to get done. Can you take a look at it and tell me how you want to get it done? And you come back to me, 3 days later, and you say, hey, boss, I was looking at this thing, and it's just not possible. And I don't say, well, actually it is possible, so I've already thought it through. Here's how you need to do it. Instead I go, well, what do you think our real challenges are? And then you say, well, we can't get the supplies in time. And then you say, well, and also we don't have enough manning. And I say, okay, well, what's taking the supplies so long to get here? And you say, well, they're coming across the country on a truck. And so it's going to take, a week and a half for them to get here. And we don't have enough people because it's going to take 190 man hours in this amount of time. And I only have 3 guys. So it's impossible. And I go, is there any other way to ship stuff across the country? And you say, well, I mean, I guess we could fly, but it's going to be more expensive. Oh, okay. Well, how much more expensive? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so eventually, you're going to come to the solution. You're going to come to the solution. And I'm going to be happy that you come to the solution. Or there's a chance that you actually say, hey, Jocko, it's not possible, and here's why. And you tell me something that I didn't foresee. Because I'm at a higher level, I'm elevated, I'm overseeing 14 different projects. You just got one. When you dig in and you pull the thread, you realize it can't be done. I go, oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Okay. I'm legitimately asking these questions. I'm not doing this, okay, well, we're going to get you there, and that's what's going to happen. I already know the outcome. No, I think I know the outcome, but I'm not sure of it. You know how many times I'm sure of what the outcome's going to be? Not very often. So the truth is I'm being totally transparent. I'm asking legitimate questions. I think I know the answers. I think they're going to lead to the right place. And so it's okay to let that run its course. Manipulation obviously has a bad connotation. Leadership has a good connotation. What's the difference between the two? Because guess what? If I'm manipulating you, I'm trying to get you to do something. If I'm leading you, I'm trying to get you to do something. And many of the tools are very similar. So what's the difference between me leading you and me manipulating you? It's very easy for me to answer that question. If I'm manipulating you, I'm trying to get you to do something that's going to benefit me. If I'm leading, I'm trying to get you to do something that's going to benefit you, it's going to benefit the team, and it's going to benefit the mission. And by the way, if I'm a manipulator, I can get away with that for a little while, But eventually you're gonna look at me for what I am. You're gonna see that the maneuvers I'm making, the tools I'm using, I'm utilizing those tools for my own benefit. And as soon as you see that, you won't fully support me. You won't. The same goes for when I'm trying to make you do something good for yourself and for the team. You're gonna see that too. And you're gonna say, he actually cares about me. That's what he's doing this for. And when you know I care about you, you'll do anything for me. I mean, that's what it boils down to. How do I give you hard criticism? The first thing I have to do is make sure that you understand I care about you, which is not easy to do, and it's not always obvious. But if you know that more than anything else, what I want is for you to be successful, when I say, hey Tom, I'm looking at the outcome of the last project, and you were like 3 weeks past the time, I think there's some things that we could do to kind of make you a little bit more efficient in leading these things. If you know that my number one thing is that I care about you, you're gonna be all ears. To an extent. Because guess what percentage of the world is truly open for criticism? Oh, it's tiny. There's so few people that are truly open to criticism. I always use this example, like if I went and talked to your company and got done and was like, hey Tom, it's great talking to your company. You got any feedback for me? And you said, well, yeah, I think you could have spent a little more time talking about extreme ownership. It would have been a little bit better for my crew. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, really? Oh, you think? No, that's what we think. Even though I actually asked for feedback, I'm getting mad. My ego's perking up. So most of the time, people don't want to get that direct feedback. And in fact, sometimes when I hear people say, I'm just going to get direct with this person. I'm just going to let them know exactly what they're screwing up. Almost always, that's a bad idea. Now, and there's some people that sit there and they say, well, that's weak or whatever, but it's not. Because I'm going to get the message to you. I'm just going to deliver it in a way that you accept it more, that your mind is open to it. That's what I'm trying to do as a leader, as a friend, as someone that cares about you. Hey, look, I need to get this information to you. Now, this will escalate over time. And if I've tried, if I said, hey Tom, I think we could do this better, and you still fail. And I say, hey Tom, maybe you should try this, and you still fail. And then I say, hey Tom, I think this is the way you should go, and you still fail. And then I'm gonna get to a point where I'm saying, listen, Tom, this isn't working. The way you are doing this is not working. And I told you this, and I told you that, and I told you the other thing. And what I'm trying to say is that you need to change this part of your game. It is hurting you. So sometimes it gets there, where I've totally exhausted every conversation that I can think of. You know how often I escalated to that point in my career, my life? Like almost never. Almost never do you get someone that is so thick-headed that they're not gonna listen to you. And when they are, it's because they have a giant ego. It's because their ego, they can't see the fact that, oh, I'm making some real bad mistakes. And by the way, when you've delivered them that final message of like, hey, here's exactly what you're screwing up, what they say is, no, you just don't know what it's like in my shoes. And that's when you know you can't help them. Well, if you want to be a good leader, you have to understand human nature. And the places where human nature reveals itself most clearly are times of extreme sorrow, pain, suffering, and inhumanity. So if you want to see what happens to human beings, how they behave, see what they do in a concentration camp. If you want to understand humans better, understand what they do in the genocide in Rwanda, when 800,000 people were killed in 100 days, mostly with machetes. There's something going on there that we need to understand. If you want to understand leadership, you want to understand human nature, you need to look at the My Lai massacre, which happened in Vietnam, which was perpetrated by American soldiers, normal American soldiers. Normal American soldiers, you see the typical war movie, they got the typical Americans, they got the kid from the city, they got the kid from the country, they got the jock, they got the rock, that's what this was. That's what that company of soldiers was. And they went in there and committed heinous atrocities. And if we don't recognize what causes that, where that comes from, and that it's actually possible, then it's bound to happen again. My deployments to Iraq, I was 30 plus years old. My last deployment to Iraq, I think I was 34, 35 years old. But that's me. I'm a 35-year-old man with a wife and kids. I have guys in my platoons that are 20 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old. I need to pay attention to them because they're going to have less insight into the world. And so it's going to be challenging. So that's what we do. That's what leaders are there for. So we as leaders, we have to constantly look at that and say, okay, I've got that going on. And I need to control it. So when people start getting emotional, when guys get killed, how do I get control over that? Yeah, I absolutely have to control my own emotions because it's your guys. And believe me, when you lose one of your guys, you want to kill everyone. Everyone. And you know you can't. And you know you shouldn't. So you have to detach from your emotions, you have to get control of them, and you have to make sure that you lead your men in the right direction so they don't do something that is not the right thing to do. One of my answers for people, when they say, hey, how can I get better at detaching and controlling my emotions, I tell them to start training jiu-jitsu. Because you're gonna get tapped out in jiu-jitsu. Your ego is gonna get smacked around so hard, you're gonna lose your mind. And the madder you get, the more aggressive you are, the more you're gonna get beat down, and the worse it's gonna be. So you have to learn to control your emotions. And then what you have to do is you have to start practicing it all the time. You have to start paying attention to the red flags that go up when I start raising my voice at you. I go, oh, that's your emotion, get mad. And for me, like the minute I feel some sort of anger, some sort of jealousy, some sort of frustration, most of the time I go, oh, you're getting mad, that's your ego. You're getting emotional about this. Take a step back and listen to what the other person's saying. Take a step back and try and see it from their perspective. Take a step back and try and understand what they're trying to say. Because sometimes, if you're not a very articulate person, you're just making me mad. It's only because I don't understand what you're trying to say. Take a step back. Let's talk through it. So pay attention to, I always talk about when you're sending an email to someone and you're typing like this, don't send that email. That's not a good email to send. That's an emotional email. Wait, write it out, fine, and then save it and read it later, and you'll realize, oh yeah, I was really mad about something, or I was really frustrated. How do you do it? You practice it. You pay attention to your emotions and you get control over them. Have kids. If you have kids, you'll have to learn to get control of your emotions. Very similar to when we talked about trust and building trust and giving trust. If I want to gain the ability to influence you, well then what I have to do is give you the ability to influence me. And when I say, hey, here's what we're trying to make happen. Here's what I want to do. And you say, well, I think we should do it like this. You know what I should say? Okay, well, let's take a look at that. The more I allow you to influence me, the more open your mind gets for me to influence you. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to allow you to influence me, and the more I allow that to happen, the more influence I'm going to have. Respect, same thing. If I treat you like you're a plebe, like you don't matter, you're not going to respect me at all. But if I treat you with respect and respect you, when you try and talk to me, and I listen and I respect what you're saying and I try and understand it fully, then your respect for me is going to go up as well. So when you want to earn respect, give respect. When you want to earn influence, give influence. When you want to earn trust, give trust. All those three are related. She said, all the kids know their times tables and I don't know them. And I said, well, how much have you studied them? And she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you need to study them. You need to learn them. And so I sat her down, we made flashcards, and she studied them, and in an hour she knew all of her times tables. Of course, this is my fault, bad dad, I didn't teach her how to study, but in her mind, she thought she was stupid. But I said, you're not born knowing the times tables, you need to study them. So if I can make that mistake as a dad that cares about his kids, how many other parents are making that mistake? How many other kids go through life and they go, oh, I'm stupid, or oh, I'm not strong. I can't do any pull-ups, I'm not strong. Actually, Have you ever done pull-ups before? No. Oh, guess what? In order to get strong, you got to do pull-ups. And I talk about this in the book. Sure. Are there some kids that are going to be able to do pull-ups out of the gate? Sure. Are there some kids that can learn their times tables really quickly? Sure. You're not going to be great at everything, but you can get better as long as you have the discipline, put your mind to it, and are willing to work hard. You can get to 1, which if you can get to 1, you can get to 3. If you can get to 3, you can get to 7. So many kids these days miss out on the fact the correlation between working and studying and pushing yourself to the results that you get. It's what I think hurts kids is they don't connect what they're doing now with the future. I know I didn't. When I was a kid, I was, what's the future? It's tomorrow. The future is, the weekend. On Friday night, we're going to go to Johnny's house and we're going to play war. That's the future. You don't realize, you can actually set yourself up. What you're doing today is connected to the future. Okay, once you make that connection, you say, maybe I'll study. Maybe I'll train. Maybe I'll work out harder. You can start doing those things because you can improve and you can have a better life. If you have discipline now, it'll give you freedom in the future. The problem is you need to be in a position where you can talk your way out of it. Because if you're around a person that's a bully, they don't understand talking. They don't care what you say to them. They're going to physically bully you. So if you don't have the physical knowledge, presence, ability to stand up and stop that, then you're going to get abused. You're going to get beat up. That's the horrible reality. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it is that way. And as you know in the book, he's actually able to, once he has the confidence and the true ability, he stands up to the bully, and the bully is actually a weakling. He doesn't want to fight. But he'd never been challenged before, which is a very realistic bully. Bully, big kid, no one ever stands up to him because they're big. When someone finally says, I'll actually fight you if I have to. And the bully says, he's never been in a fight before. Never had anyone stand up to him, and that makes him get humbled really quickly. So, and that is what happens. When someone knows how to fight, you don't have to fight. And that's, that sounds like one of those whatever spiritual things about, hey, the warrior that knows how to fight does not have to fight. It's like, I'm not saying like that. I'm telling you right now, if you know how to fight, you have a much rarer chance of getting into a fight. When you're, when I was a kid, a younger kid, teenager, I got in a lot of fights. And you could recognize when someone knew how to fight. You could look at them. And now that I've been training jiu-jitsu and fought a ton, when I look at someone, you can see this person knows how to fight. When someone looks at me, they're not thinking, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this thing right here. It's not even just hey, this guy's big, but they can tell, hey, I'll fight. I don't really want to because I'm busy, but if you want to push me, we're going to have a problem, and it's going to get solved my way. So having that is important. And I can tell you right now, the amount of fights I've got in since before I knew jiu-jitsu, since after, is it's directly correlated to the more you know, the less you fight. Just help people learn the lessons that I've learned so they don't have to learn them for themselves. There's a lot of mistakes that I've made. I've been blessed and lucky, and I explain this in Leadership Strategy and Tactics, that I've been very lucky to have been through what I've been through, to been around the people that I've been around, to learn the things that I've been blessed and lucky enough to be able to learn, and I don't want to hoard them. I want to give them away. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing and trying to help people as much as I can.